Welcome to a very special edition of the Signal Conversation for the year end. We have with us the Chief Brand Officer of Procter & Gamble, Marc Pritchard. Marc, so glad you could join us. Thank you for being here.
You got it, John. Great to be here with you.
So as you know, we're doing something sort of special for the December edition, where we've asked a number of our community members in the Signal community two specific questions. So I thought I'd start by asking you those two questions. The first one has to do with consumer behaviors and the pandemic. As you've watched this unfold over the past 8 or 9 months, what consumer behaviors have shifted permanently, do you think, since the start of the year?
Well, I think, first of all, one of the things that has shifted has been cleaning, health, and hygiene products have elevated in their importance big time. I mean, that's what's part of our portfolio, and we really see that consumption has elevated, and those habits are going to be embedded, and they will continue. I think that will be a permanent change, a step change.
I don't think I'm ever going to not wash my hands the way I have been for the past 8 months.
That's right. That's right. It's just, and then it becomes, and people are now getting more accustomed to being at home more often. That will change, I think, permanently. Is that it won't be, just everybody will stay home all the time. There'll be more of a mixture between working in the office and working at home, but the elevated time at home will lead to, higher degrees of doing dishes, more cooking at home, and that leads to just different overall behaviors. So I think that's been pretty interesting. I know you gave a good example of that. What's actually quite interesting about it as well, not to get into it too much, is that people are now noticing that the performance of these everyday health, hygiene, and cleaning products matter. So people want them, and they want the better performing products. They're not willing to just wash their hands with anything or wash their dishes with anything, or and as you well know, there's a real run on Charmin. So that's an important product. So that's one. The other one is media consumption. Digital media consumption, way up. OTT streaming, so over-the-top streaming, way up. Not going back. You can just see that shift has occurred. And what I think will be interesting is looking ahead to what has happened in China over the course of the last several years. It's now like 85% digital, and you can just see that shift is definitely going to continue. And it's probably accelerated by about 5 years. And then the third one would be e-commerce, or ordering online, getting stuff shipped to home, or going to the store and picking it up yourself. That's probably one of the bigger ones that has shifted, which is the pickup. So those are three pretty fundamental changes that I don't think are going to go back.
Exactly. Okay, so shifting to the second question, how has your own leadership style changed as you've managed through this year?
I'm not sure how much it's changed, as much as is that I have used about every aspect of leadership that I've accumulated over the course of 4 decades. And within every single thing that a leadership need has kind of occurred during this last year. If you think about what mid-March, when Damon Jones came to me, our chief communications officer, said, "Hey, we gotta communicate tomorrow that we're gonna basically be telling everybody to go home and work from home." It's like, whoa, okay, that was crisis. We were in crisis mode, and then we and our leadership team were in the crisis mode for several weeks, literally meeting constantly, and that brings this element of pure straight shooting, fast cycle decision making, and just how you operate in a crisis. And that was a heightened level of crisis leadership for several months. It actually took another exponential leap May 25th, after George Floyd was killed, on top of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor. So we had now a new reckoning and an awakening, and that led to another level of not first crisis, but then also a high degree of empathy and connecting and being in touch, and a determination. It brought a great deal of vulnerability, and really courage to a large extent of addressing topics that are are challenging topics, and being open about those. So that led to a different level of engagement and leadership. The importance of communication and constant communication has been a real, a premium on clarity, as well as empathy and being in touch. And then just agility has, another exponential leap. Literally, decisions that used to take weeks take days, take hours. I'm already pretty connected and pretty hands-on on thing. I mean, we created 15 different films in a span of about 6 months, and that was an everyday occasion. This, we completely pivoted on Signal, completely, 100, not 180 degrees, 360 degrees. And, and that brought a level of creativity that I think was really, really quite exciting. So I guess, probably the biggest change was the integration of virtually every leadership lesson brought together throughout this entire year. And where, now what I see is, I'm doing this as well as others are stepping up, stepping forward, and doing everything I possibly can to be useful to as many people as I possibly can.
What you mentioned, makes me wonder what changes will remain in the way you do your work. And I wonder in particular if that speed that you mentioned, which I've seen firsthand. I mean, I've worked with you and with P&G for a decade now, very closely, and for longer than that before. And one thing P&G was not known for was speed. It was known for making very good decisions and thinking things through. But do you think now that you've seen really good work and good decisions being made much more quickly, that will be a more permanent fixture of how things are going forward, even when this fog of the pandemic lifts?
I think so, John, because I think that, first of all, we're now learning how to and getting accustomed to operating at the speed of culture and the speed of the market. And the markets and culture and the events that are happening, they're not waiting for us at all. So there's like a need for almost every day to deal with the conditions that are occurring. And the thing about it is that these conditions are changing constantly. And I think they're going to continue to change in a constant level, because look, we're dealing with equality and inclusion issues. We're dealing with health issues. We're dealing with economic issues. We're dealing with climate issues. So all of those things are affecting how we do business, and that requires speed and requires agility. And so I don't think we're going to. And now we're used to it. It's just very, very easy. Get on. Okay, let's get on. We got to get several people onto a Zoom or a WebEx or a Vimeo or a Teams, whatever the case may be, and just make the decision. I was just in a meeting, before this one too, where we're creating some new work, and we're planning ahead. But for this work to come out either in February timeframe, and we said, okay, let's reconnect. And I'm like, okay, well let's like reconnect in a couple days. Let's don't wait for another few weeks. Because that's the old way of doing things. And what I found is that that old way of doing things, you lose the thread sometimes. When you have this speed of decision making, when you're really engaged and thinking about things, you know, when you come back the next day or the next 2 days, you've still got the tracks of what you were thinking about connected, and then you make a new connection and you make things happen. And I think that's why we created some of, in my view, some of the most brilliant work that we've done. Circumstances, the choice, Estamos Unidos, choose equal, lead with love. We created some brilliant work on some, and I think Signal was our best ever. And you know,
Yeah.
and we didn't have much time. We just said we're going to make this happen. I think there's a lot to that.
So I'll take that as a cue to ask you a specific question. This will be the penultimate one, that has to do with the media and marketing world. It definitely is in a significant transition. It has been. I mean, that's why we started Signal. Really, is to explore that world. But it does feel like the last 9 months have moved us into a new place. Can you describe it? And as you look toward next year, you know, where do you think the most interesting new areas to explore might be?
Well, first of all, I think what we saw in the media world is, first of all, there was this immediate jump in consumption of all media, but then what you saw is this the shift towards the over-the-top streaming, which is essentially, think about it as, you know, on-demand content that will now move very quickly into, you know, digital, and become essentially digital, and the disruption of the linear TV market to the point of no return. And you know, part of this, you know, we ended up just one thing that we did is we actually looked at how are we going to disrupt the traditional media negotiations. And so, you know, you remember the upfront model, which was built in like the 1950s, because it was built around three TV networks that you planned your advertising around the fall launches of the automobile models that were going to come out for the next year, and you planned this broadcast year that made no sense relative to anybody's fiscal year, but that's what you did, and you created this system where you bought as much as you possibly could because you didn't want to make sure that you got somebody else to buy it, and you wanted to get the best deal. So it was this, well, I call it, it shouldn't be called the upfront, should be called the FOMOs. Well, and what was fascinating to me was that how does this happen? TV ratings come down and prices still go up. Well, of course, if you create an artificial marketplace, then and you define and you give all your data to the broadcasters, they find out how much your demand is. They can set the prices wherever they want. We said no more. And the other part of it is that you found out that one of the reasons why the prices went up every year is because the price of content went up every year. And the content kept getting more and more and more expensive. Well, with this situation, you couldn't go out and produce expensive content. So the whole content ecosystem got disrupted. So if you think about that, that's going to completely change that linear TV market and the entire content market. You now see the content is going to be easier to create. It's going to be lower cost, which is going to change the cost structure. And then, you know, it's going to change how we operate. So that's a big one that's going to happen.
So lastly, Marc, are there any initiatives coming in 2021 that you can give us a glimpse into from P&G? Anything you're excited about pushing forward in the year of 2021?
Well, first of all, you know, get ready for CES. We're going to have it's not going to be physical, it's going to be a virtual platform. And we're going to have a lot of fun with that. We're going to actually do some innovation on that. And there's going to be some pretty cool innovations that you're going to see around technology and for the home, sustainable homes, other types of breakthroughs on cleaning, health, and hygiene. So that's going to be pretty cool. The other thing we're doing is we're also working on, we're working on how we are going to translate our mission of being a force for good and a force for growth into connecting more deeply with consumers on that front. And so stay tuned for some of that. We have 2 Olympic Games coming up in the next, basically, 13 months. So you'll have Tokyo in July, August, then you'll turn around and have Beijing in January, February. So that's going to be pretty amazing. And we're gonna be stepping up on sustainability too. So you'll see a lot of really good work there, in addition to all the stuff that we're talking about from a media standpoint. So look, suffice it to say, we are still going to be stepping up to constructively disrupt and disrupt how we build brands, how we build a superior consumer experience, and it's going to be pretty interesting. It's going to be a heck of a year.
Well, it will be a very interesting year indeed. I look forward to seeing how it rolls out. Marc Pritchard, thank you so much for being part of the Signal conversation this month.
Thank you, John. Thanks for your partnership. And I'm really looking forward to Signal 2021 with you and all the other things that it brings.
As am I.